Hi, everyone. Just thought I'd talk about my personal experience with the coronavirus and things that I've noticed. So, a few weeks back, I got pretty sick. I thought it was something else because I was moving, but then when it hit me like a wave, I was just curled up, shivering. I thought it could be the coronavirus. Wasn't sure, but I thought it might be. So, I actually was able to start an IV and do high-dose vitamin C, and I loaded up a bunch of antivirals into the IV fluid and some glutathione for some antioxidant activity. And I thought I was better, but then the next night it hit me again. I had a fever, shaking chills, just laying down shivering. And I talked to a friend of mine who had done some research on the SARS virus back in 2003, which is a coronal virus. And he told me I'd better load myself up with Plaquenil, which is also known as hydroxychloroquine. So I did. And I didn't know which was worse, the virus or the pills, because when you take a lot of pills to give yourself a loading dose, I started getting cramps and aches and pains and nausea and headache, and then my eyes hurt and they burned. And I started thinking this could be worse than the virus. But then when the virus hit me and I was curled up shivering, I was like, no, it's not worse than the virus. The pills are not worse. So I did another IV, I did the pills, and I was good. In about 3 more days, I felt fine. So I got over it pretty quickly. And someone had heard about that and called me up, asked them to do a favor to see a doctor who was an emergency room doctor who was really sick. And she should have been on a ventilator. I didn't know if she'd make it, actually. So we put the IV that I did in me and her, and we loaded her up on the hydroxychloroquine, and she did great. In a couple of days, she was breathing real well. But there's something that everyone should know about this virus. This virus, for some people, is not that bad. It runs its course. But for other people, when it gets in your lungs, it is relentless. It's a completely different animal. Once this virus is in the lungs, it's relentless. And what makes it so bad is that it uses our own immune system against us. So we have these things that help our immune system. They're part of the immune system. They're protein. They're called cytokines. Cytokines are cell mediators or cell signalers. They send messages and signals, and they invite all their buddies and to help kill something bad like a virus. And in this case, they get so excited, the cytokines, and there's so many of them. They get in the lungs and they say, hey, everybody, come on, let's have a party here in the lungs. This is going to be a great place to have a party. And they are so overly hyper that they cause so much inflammation, and they also cause the lungs to have the blood vessels in the lungs releasing fluid from the blood vessels, which gets in the air spaces that we need to breathe, which are now filled up with fluid, so it makes it impossible to breathe. So the idea of the hydroxychloroquine is to reduce our immune system response, to reduce that cytokine storm. And the high-dose vitamin C, what that does is it's a strong antioxidant, but it also activates our T helper cells. And our T helper 1 cells specifically, because these are T helper cells, and those are lymphocytes, type of white blood cell, that love to beat up on viruses and bacteria. So we activate the T helper cells, and we suppress our immune system from hurting us. And that seems to be why this works. So I did it on me, I did it on a couple of other doctors, and then here's what makes this virus so bad. It seems like if you can get past round 1, it comes back for a round 2. Not in everybody, but for a lot of people, 3 or 4 days later when you relapse. And if you can get past round 2, bacteria, they all of a sudden come in and say, oh, look at all this gook, look at all this fluid in the lungs, I just would love to grow here. And so now you have a superimposed bacterial pneumonia, and it's going to be really nasty. And so you got to be on antibiotics. And if you can get past all that, well, then you're left with a leftover war zone in your lungs, and you know how war zones can look. Well, that's going to be a lot of scarring of the lung tissue, and you're going to have what's called pulmonary fibrosis. So we got to learn how to treat pulmonary fibrosis. Now, if it were me, I would have been putting stem cells in myself, because stem cells can actually kill viruses and bacteria and will repair the damage to the lung At least it will try to. And that will limit your pulmonary fibrosis. So right now, the FDA, we're waiting on them to approve studies using stem cells in critically ill coronavirus patients. And I hope that shed a little bit of light on this, about how nasty this virus is, because it is one nasty virus when it gets into the lungs. So, everybody out there, take care, stay healthy, and be careful. Okay, bye-bye.